Every morning, nearly 73% of people open their eyes with a quiet panic already sitting in their chest, and they assume that this feeling is just part of being human. They wake up anxious. They go to bed restless. And somewhere in between, they tell themselves this is just how it is. This is just who they are. But what if I told you that everything you believe about your stress is wrong? What if the tension in your chest, the racing thoughts at 3 in the morning, the way you snap at the people you love, what if none of that is actually you? Stay with me, because what I am about to explain will change the way you understand yourself forever. You are not an anxious person. You have an anxious nervous system. And that distinction, that one shift in understanding, is where your transformation begins. Right now, as you listen to these words, your body is processing thousands of signals. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are expanding. Your eyes are scanning. And deep inside your brain, an ancient system is asking one single question. Am I safe? This is not a question you consciously answer. This is a question your nervous system answers for you. Every second, every moment, without you even knowing. And here is the hidden truth that will unlock everything. Your nervous system is not designed to keep you calm. It is designed to keep you alive. Think about that for a moment. Your brain does not care if you are happy. It does not care if you are peaceful. It does not care if you sleep well or enjoy your morning coffee without a sense of dread. Your brain has one primary job, and that job is survival. This is why you can be sitting in a perfectly safe room, in a perfectly comfortable chair, with no real danger anywhere in sight, and still feel like something is terribly wrong. This is why your heart races before a meeting that poses no physical threat. This is why you lie awake at night replaying conversations that happened years ago. Your nervous system has learned to perceive danger everywhere. And once it learns this, it does not simply unlearn it because you want it to. A 2023 study from Stanford University's Department of Psychiatry found that 78% of adults show signs of chronic nervous system dysregulation. That means nearly 4 out of every 5 people are walking around with a stress response that is stuck in the on position. Not because they are weak, not because they are broken, but because their nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect them from threats. The problem is, the threats it is responding to no longer exist. Here is what nobody tells you about anxiety. Here is what the motivational videos never explain. Here is what years of surface-level mindfulness cannot reveal. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system response. You cannot positive think your way into calm. You cannot journal, affirm, or visualize yourself out of fight or flight. Because anxiety does not live in your thoughts. It lives in your body. Your nervous system has a memory that goes far beyond what your conscious mind can access. It remembers every moment you felt unsafe. It remembers the tone of a critical parent. It remembers the humiliation of a childhood failure. It remembers the betrayal, the loss, the moments when the world felt overwhelming and there was no way out. And it stores these memories not as stories, but as sensations, as tension in your shoulders, as tightness in your throat, as a feeling in your stomach that something is about to go wrong. This is why you can read every self-help book, try every meditation app, attend every therapy session, and still wake up with that familiar knot of anxiety in your chest. Because you have been treating the symptom while the root cause remains untouched. The root cause is not your thoughts. The root cause is your nervous system. Now, I want you to take a breath. Not because I am going to teach you breathing exercises right now. That comes later. But because what I am about to tell you is the most important thing you will hear in this entire audiobook. You can reset your nervous system. You can interrupt the automatic patterns that have been running your life. You can create a gap between your triggers and your reactions, a gap where choice becomes possible. And you can do this in just 10 minutes a day. This is not a theory. This is not wishful thinking. This is backed by over 2 decades of neuroscience research from institutions including Harvard Medical School, the HeartMath Institute, and the National Institute of Mental Health. The science is clear. Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself, does not stop in childhood. It continues throughout your entire life, which means the anxious patterns your nervous system learned can be unlearned. The stress responses that feel automatic can be interrupted. The dysregulation that feels permanent can be healed. But here's where most people go wrong. And I need you to pay very close attention to this. Most stress reduction approaches focus on what happens after you are already triggered. They teach you what to do when you are already in a panic attack. They show you how to cope when you are already overwhelmed. They help you manage the aftermath of an emotional spiral. But by that point, you are already flooded with stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline are already surging through your bloodstream. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, has already gone offline. And your amygdala, your brain's alarm system, has already hijacked your entire experience. Trying to calm down at this point is like trying to stop a car after it has already crashed. What you need is a system that works before the crash happens. A system that interrupts the automatic response before it takes over. A system that creates space between the trigger and the reaction. This is exactly what the 7-step method in this audiobook will teach you. You will learn how to recognize the early warning signs of dysregulation before they escalate into full anxiety. You will learn how to send safety signals to your nervous system, signals that override the ancient alarm bells. You will learn how to tone your vagus nerve, the superhighway between your brain and your body, so that your baseline state shifts from stress to calm. And you will learn how to do all of this in 10 minutes a day, every day, until it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. But first, you need to understand something essential. Something that will save you years of frustration and failed attempts. Your nervous system does not respond to logic. It does not care about your arguments or your reasons or your very rational explanations for why you should not feel anxious. Your nervous system responds to signals. Signals of safety. Signals of danger. Signals that come from your body, your breath, your environment, and your actions. When you try to talk yourself out of anxiety, you are using the wrong language. You are speaking English to a part of your brain that only understands body language. This is why the most effective nervous system interventions are somatic, meaning they work through the body, not through the mind. Breath work, cold exposure, humming and singing, gentle movement. These are the languages your nervous system actually speaks. And when you learn to speak these languages, something remarkable happens. The tension that has lived in your body for years begins to release. The hypervigilance that has kept you scanning for danger begins to soften. The emotional triggers that used to send you spiraling lose their power. You begin to feel something you may not have felt in a very long time. Safety. Real safety. Not the temporary relief of distraction, but the deep, embodied sense that you are okay. That you can handle what comes. That you are finally, truly at home in your own body. This is not about becoming someone you are not. This is about becoming who you were before the stress accumulated, before the trauma imprinted, before your nervous system learned that the world was a dangerous place. Underneath the anxiety, underneath the tension, underneath the years of accumulated stress, there is a version of you that knows how to rest. A version of you that knows how to breathe deeply without effort. A version of you that responds to life's challenges with clarity instead of panic. That version is not lost. It is waiting. And the 7 steps in this audiobook are the key to accessing it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking that your stress is different, that your situation is too complicated, that you have tried everything and nothing has worked. I understand. And I want you to know that feeling is also part of dysregulation. When your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, it blocks hope. It tells you that change is not possible. It keeps you trapped in the familiar patterns because unfamiliar, even if better, feels dangerous. So if you are feeling skeptical right now, that is okay. That skepticism is your nervous system trying to protect you from disappointment. You do not need to believe in this process completely. You just need to stay with me. You just need to keep listening. And you need to try the practices, even when your mind tells you they will not work. Because here is what the research shows. The people who heal are not the ones who believe the hardest. They are the ones who practice the most consistently. Small actions, repeated daily, create changes that logic alone cannot achieve. 10 minutes a day. That is all this system requires. 10 minutes of practices that are simple, accessible, and designed specifically to communicate with your nervous system in its own language. You have spent years, maybe decades, living with a stress response that was never meant to run continuously. You have spent countless hours fighting against your own biology, trying to think your way to peace, trying to force calm through willpower alone. It is time for a different approach. It is time to work with your body instead of against it. It is time to reset the system at its source. In the next chapter, you will learn exactly how your brain creates the stress response and why this knowledge is the first step toward breaking free. You will discover the specific structures in your nervous system that are responsible for anxiety, and you will understand, perhaps for the first time, why you feel the way you feel. But more importantly, you will begin to see a path forward. A path that does not require you to be stronger or smarter or more disciplined than you already are. A path that simply requires you to understand how your system works, and then to give it what it actually needs. Your nervous system learned to be anxious. It can learn to be calm. The transformation begins now. Stay with me. What is coming next is where everything starts to click. Chapter 2. Your brain's secret mission. Here is a number that will change how you see yourself. 300 milliseconds. That is how long it takes your brain to decide if something is dangerous. Less than a third of a second. Faster than a blink. Faster than a single heartbeat. Before you have any conscious thought, before you can reason or analyze or choose, your brain has already made its decision. And here is the part that explains everything you have ever struggled with. That decision is almost always wrong. Not wrong because your brain is broken. Wrong because your brain is still running software designed for a world that no longer exists. You are walking around with a Stone Age survival system trying to navigate a smartphone world. And the mismatch between what your brain was built for and what your life actually looks like. That mismatch is the source of nearly all your stress. In this chapter, you will discover the secret mission your brain is running every single moment of your life. You will understand why you feel anxious even when nothing is wrong. You will meet the two key players inside your head, the alarm system and the captain, and you will learn why one of them keeps hijacking the other. By the end of this chapter, you will never see your anxiety the same way again. Let us begin with the most important thing you need to know about your brain. Your brain does not care about your happiness. It does not care about your peace of mind. It does not care about your career goals, your relationships, or your dreams for the future. Your brain has exactly one job, and it will sacrifice everything else to accomplish that job. That job is keeping you alive. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. Your ancestors did not survive by being calm and relaxed. They survived by being hypervigilant. They survived by assuming every rustle in the bushes was a predator. They survived by reacting first and thinking later. The humans who stopped to carefully analyze whether that shadow was actually a tiger, those humans got eaten. The humans who panicked and ran at the first sign of danger, those humans lived long enough to have children. And those children inherited the same hair trigger alarm system. You are the descendant of the most anxious, most paranoid, most reactive humans who ever lived. Your nervous system is the product of millions of years of natural selection that favored fear over logic, speed over accuracy, survival over serenity. This is not a design flaw. This is a feature that kept your ancestors alive in a world of genuine physical threats. But here is where the problem begins. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat. To your nervous system, an angry email from your boss triggers the same response as a charging predator. A critical comment from a family member activates the same alarm bells as physical danger. The thought of an upcoming presentation floods your body with the same stress hormones your ancestors released when running from actual death. A 2022 study from the University of California, Berkeley's neuroscience department found that the modern brain experiences an average of 50 stress responses per day. 50 times your body prepares for life or death danger. 50 times stress hormones surge through your bloodstream. 50 times your nervous system shifts into survival mode. But here is the crucial finding. Fewer than 2% of those responses are in reaction to actual physical threats. This means 98% of your stress is your brain reacting to things that cannot actually hurt you. Emails, deadlines, traffic, social media, conversations, memories, thoughts about the future. None of these can physically harm you, but your nervous system responds as if they can. Now I want to introduce you to the two key players in this drama. Understanding these two will give you the power to interrupt the stress response before it takes over. The first player is your amygdala. Think of the amygdala as your brain's alarm system. It is a small, almond-shaped structure deep in the center of your brain, and its job is simple: detect threats and sound the alarm. Your amygdala is incredibly fast and incredibly sensitive. It processes incoming information before your conscious mind even knows what is happening. When it detects something that might be dangerous, and might is the key word here, it immediately triggers a cascade of responses throughout your entire body. Heart rate increases. Breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Muscles tense. Blood rushes away from your digestive system and toward your limbs. Stress hormones flood your bloodstream. Your pupils dilate. Your attention narrows. All of this happens automatically. All of this happens in less than a second. And all of this happens whether the threat is real or imagined. Here is what makes the amygdala so problematic in modern life. It learns from experience, but it learns the wrong lessons. Every time you felt scared, embarrassed, rejected, or overwhelmed, your amygdala took notes. It recorded the circumstances. It cataloged the triggers. And it added all of this to its threat database. So now, years later, your alarm system sounds the alert not just for actual dangers, but for anything that remotely resembles a past painful experience. Someone raises their voice, and your amygdala connects it to childhood memories of conflict. A notification pings on your phone, and your amygdala anticipates bad news. You walk into a social situation, and your amygdala scans for any sign of judgment or rejection. This is why you can feel anxious for no apparent reason. The reason exists. It is just buried deep in your amygdala's memory, triggering responses to threats you cannot consciously remember. Now let me introduce the second player, your prefrontal cortex. If your amygdala is the alarm system, your prefrontal cortex is the captain. The prefrontal cortex sits right behind your forehead. It is responsible for rational thinking, planning, decision-making, and impulse control. It is the part of your brain that can step back, assess a situation objectively, and choose a thoughtful response instead of an automatic reaction. In theory, the captain should be able to override the alarm system. In theory, your prefrontal cortex should be able to look at that angry email and say, "This is not a real threat. There is no need to panic." In theory, logic should win over fear. But here is what actually happens. When your amygdala sounds the alarm, it does something devastating to your captain. It effectively takes the prefrontal cortex offline. This is not a metaphor. Brain imaging studies from the National Institute of Mental Health show that during a stress response, blood flow and neural activity decrease dramatically in the prefrontal cortex while increasing in the amygdala. Your rational thinking center literally loses power while your fear center gains power. This is why you cannot think your way out of anxiety. By the time you try to reason with yourself, the part of your brain capable of reasoning has already been hijacked. The alarm system has taken control, and the captain is locked out of the bridge. You have experienced this countless times. You know that your fear is irrational. You know that the situation is not actually dangerous. But that knowledge does nothing to stop the racing heart, the sweating palms, the sense of impending doom. Because knowledge lives in the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex is not in charge anymore. This is the fundamental challenge of stress and anxiety. The very moment you most need your rational mind is the exact moment it becomes least available. Now, let me show you how the average person responds to this situation versus how top performers navigate it differently. The average person waits until they are triggered, then tries to calm down using logic. They tell themselves not to be anxious. They try to talk themselves through the fear. They use willpower to force calm. And when none of this works, because it cannot work when the prefrontal cortex is offline, they conclude that something is wrong with them. They believe they are broken. They believe they should be able to control their emotions, but simply cannot. Elite performers, the people who thrive under pressure, who remain calm in chaos, who seem to have some secret emotional stability, do something completely different. They work with their nervous system before the trigger happens. They build practices into their daily routine that keep their baseline state closer to calm. They train their vagus nerve, strengthen the connection between brain and body, and create internal conditions where the amygdala is less reactive in the first place. This is not about being stronger or smarter. This is about understanding how the system works and then giving the system what it needs. The difference between chronic stress and emotional resilience is not willpower. The difference is preparation. The difference is daily practice. The difference is knowing that you cannot win the battle after the alarm has sounded, but you can train your alarm system to sound less often and less intensely. Now let me explain what happens in your body when the alarm goes off. This is where the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems come into play. Your autonomic nervous system, the part that operates without your conscious control, has two branches. Think of them as the gas pedal and the brake pedal. The sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal. When your amygdala sounds the alarm, the sympathetic system accelerates everything. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure rises. Adrenaline and cortisol flood your bloodstream. Your body prepares to fight, flee, or freeze. This is survival mode. This is your body mobilizing every available resource to deal with a threat. And in short bursts, this response is not just normal, it is essential. It gives you the energy to run from danger, the strength to defend yourself, the focus to deal with emergencies. The problem is when the gas pedal gets stuck. In modern life, with its constant stimulation and endless low-grade stressors, many people's sympathetic nervous system is chronically activated. The gas pedal is pressed down all day, every day. The body never gets the signal that the threat has passed. The stress hormones never fully clear from the bloodstream. This is what dysregulation looks like. This is why you feel on edge even when you are safe. This is why you cannot relax even when there is nothing to worry about. Your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, burning fuel, wearing down your body, waiting for a danger that never arrives. The parasympathetic nervous system is the brake pedal. It is sometimes called the rest and digest system because it does the opposite of the sympathetic response. It slows the heart rate. It lowers blood pressure. It activates digestion. It tells every cell in your body that the threat is over and it is time to recover. In a healthy nervous system, these two branches balance each other. You experience stress, the sympathetic system activates, you deal with the challenge, and then the parasympathetic system brings you back to baseline, like a seesaw finding its center. But in a dysregulated nervous system, the seesaw is broken. The sympathetic side is permanently weighted down. The parasympathetic side cannot generate enough force to bring the system back to balance. And here is the key insight that will save you years of struggle. You cannot force the parasympathetic system to activate through willpower or positive thinking. You can only activate it through specific signals. Signals that speak directly to your nervous system. Signals that bypass the thinking mind and communicate with the body itself. These signals include slow, deep breathing that extends the exhale. They include activating the vagus nerve through humming, singing, or cold exposure. They include physical practices that release stored tension from the muscles. They include environmental cues that communicate safety. This is why the 7-step method works when other approaches fail. It does not ask you to think differently. It does not require willpower or discipline. It teaches you to send the right signals to your nervous system, signals that activate the parasympathetic response and allow your body to finally, truly rest. You now understand something that 95% of people never learn. Anxiety is not a character flaw. It is a signal that your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from threats. The only problem is that the threat detection system is miscalibrated, responding to modern challenges as if they were ancient dangers. You are not broken. Your alarm system is just too sensitive. And in the chapters ahead, you will learn exactly how to recalibrate it. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into the alarm system itself. You will learn how trauma, childhood experiences, and everyday stress have programmed your amygdala to see danger everywhere. And you will discover why your body remembers what your mind forgets, and how this hidden memory is the key to finally breaking free. The alarm system inside you is about to be revealed. And once you see it clearly, you will finally understand why you feel the way you feel. Do not leave now. What comes next is crucial. Chapter 3. The alarm system inside you. Your body is keeping score. Right now, as you listen to these words, there are memories stored in your muscles that your conscious mind has completely forgotten. There is tension in your shoulders from arguments that happened decades ago. There is tightness in your chest from moments of fear you cannot even name. There is a knot in your stomach that formed in childhood and never fully released. This is not poetry. This is neuroscience. And understanding this hidden memory system is the key to finally breaking free from anxiety that seems to have no cause. In this chapter, you will discover how your alarm system got programmed in the first place. You will learn why certain situations trigger you while others do not. You will understand why your body reacts before your mind can catch up. And you will finally see the connection between your past experiences and your present stress, a connection that explains everything. Let me start with a question that might seem strange. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt uncomfortable, even though nothing was visibly wrong? Have you ever met someone and instantly felt on edge, even though they said nothing threatening? Have you ever smelled a certain scent or heard a certain sound and suddenly felt a wave of emotion you could not explain? This is your body memory at work. This is your nervous system recognizing patterns from your past and responding before your conscious mind has any idea what is happening. Here is what the research tells us. A landmark study from New York University's Center for Neuroscience demonstrated that emotional memories are stored differently than regular memories. When you learn a fact, like the capital of France, that information goes to your hippocampus, the brain's memory filing system. You can consciously recall it, examine it, and even change your mind about it. But when you experience something emotionally significant, especially something frightening or overwhelming, that memory bypasses the hippocampus entirely. It goes straight to the amygdala. And the amygdala does not store memories as stories. It stores them as sensations, as body states, as automatic responses. This is why you can remember exactly what you learned in a history class, but have no conscious memory of a traumatic event from childhood. Yet your body still reacts as if that event just happened. The body keeps the score. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Now let me explain how your particular alarm system got calibrated. Because this is not random. The specific things that trigger you, the situations that send your nervous system into overdrive, the patterns of stress that seem to follow you through life. All of this can be traced back to how your alarm system was programmed. Your amygdala learns primarily in 3 ways. The first way is through direct experience. When something scary or overwhelming happens to you, your amygdala records everything about that moment. Not just what happened, but how it felt in your body. The sights, sounds, smells, and physical sensations all get bundled together and stored as a threat signature. From that point forward, anything that resembles that original experience, even slightly, will trigger the alarm. Your boss raises their voice, and suddenly you are 6 years old again, frozen in fear as a parent yells. A romantic partner pulls away emotionally, and your body responds with the same panic you felt during an early abandonment. The connection happens instantly, automatically, below the level of conscious awareness. This is why you can be triggered by things that seem completely unrelated to your actual trauma. The trigger does not have to match the original experience exactly. It just has to share enough features to activate the stored threat signature. The second way your amygdala learns is through observation. You do not have to experience trauma directly to be affected by it. Research from the University of Wisconsin's Department of Psychology shows that children who witness stress responses in their caregivers develop similar stress patterns themselves. If you grew up with an anxious parent, you absorb their fear. If you lived in an environment of unpredictability, your nervous system learned that the world is unsafe. If the adults around you were constantly stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally dysregulated, your alarm system calibrated itself to match. This is why some people develop anxiety without any obvious traumatic event. The trauma was in the atmosphere. It was in the nervous systems of the people around them. And they're young, developing brains absorbed it like a sponge. The third way your amygdala learns is through accumulation. You do not need one big trauma to dysregulate your nervous system. You can achieve the same result through many small stresses that never get fully processed. A critical comment here. A moment of embarrassment there. A deadline that felt overwhelming. A conflict that was never resolved. A period of uncertainty that stretched on for months. Each of these deposits a small amount of stress into your nervous system. And if you never fully discharge that stress, if you never complete the stress cycle, it accumulates. This is what researchers call allostatic load. It is the total burden of stress your body is carrying. And when that burden exceeds your system's capacity to cope, you tip into chronic dysregulation. A 2021 analysis from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine found that allostatic load, not single traumatic events, is the primary predictor of anxiety disorders in adults. In other words, it is not necessarily what happened to you. It is how much unprocessed stress your body is still holding. Now I want to explain the 3 primary ways your alarm system responds when it perceives a threat. You have probably heard of fight or flight. But there is a third response that is equally important and far less understood. Fight is exactly what it sounds like. When your amygdala perceives a threat and calculates that you can defeat it, your body prepares for combat. Adrenaline surges. Muscles tense. Anger rises. You feel an urge to confront, to push back, to dominate the threat. In modern life, fight response often shows up as irritability, snapping at people, road rage, or a constant sense of frustration. If you find yourself frequently angry for reasons that seem disproportionate to the situation, your nervous system may be stuck in fight mode. Flight is the impulse to escape. When your amygdala perceives a threat and calculates that you cannot defeat it but can outrun it, your body prepares to flee. Heart rate spikes. Legs feel restless. You feel an overwhelming urge to get away, to leave the situation, to find somewhere safe. In modern life, flight response shows up as avoidance, procrastination, canceling plans at the last minute, leaving conversations or situations that feel uncomfortable, the constant feeling that you need to escape but have nowhere to go. But here is the response that traps most people: freeze. Freeze happens when your amygdala perceives a threat and calculates that you can neither defeat it nor escape it. When fighting is futile and fleeing is impossible, the nervous system has one last option: shut down. This is not a conscious choice. This is a biological survival mechanism that evolved in our earliest ancestors. When a predator has you cornered, sometimes the best strategy is to play dead, to become invisible, to conserve energy and wait for the threat to pass. In freeze mode, your body goes numb. Your mind goes blank. You feel disconnected from yourself, from your surroundings, from reality itself. Time seems to slow down or speed up. You might feel like you are watching yourself from outside your body. This is dissociation, and it is far more common than most people realize. Here is what makes freeze particularly problematic. It prevents the stress cycle from completing. When you fight or flee successfully, your body has a way to discharge the stress hormones. You take action, the threat is resolved, and your nervous system can return to baseline. But when you freeze, the stress has nowhere to go. It gets locked in your body, stored in your muscles, held in your tissues. This is why so many people carry tension they cannot release. This is why massage and stretching provide only temporary relief. The tension is not just physical. It is the residue of incomplete stress responses, frozen in the body, waiting to be processed. A 2019 study from the Trauma Research Foundation in Boston found that 83% of people with chronic anxiety show signs of an overactive freeze response. Their nervous systems have learned that shutting down is safer than engaging. And this pattern, once established, becomes the default response to any stress. Now let me show you how the average person versus someone with a regulated nervous system handles these responses differently. The average person experiences a trigger. Their alarm system activates. They go into fight, flight, or freeze, and then they try to suppress the response. They push down the anger. They force themselves to stay in uncomfortable situations. They tell themselves to stop being so sensitive. They shame themselves for their reactions. But suppression does not complete the stress cycle. It just drives the response underground, where it continues to affect the body and mind without conscious awareness. Someone with a regulated nervous system does something completely different. They notice the response arising. They recognize it for what it is, a signal from their alarm system, not a reflection of reality. They allow the energy to move through their body without acting on it impulsively. And they use specific practices to complete the stress cycle and return to baseline. This is not about having no stress response. This is about having a stress response that completes and releases, rather than one that accumulates and stores. The good news is that your alarm system can be reprogrammed. The neural pathways that were formed through trauma and accumulated stress are not permanent. They are patterns, and patterns can be changed. This is where the concept of safety becomes essential. Your nervous system is constantly asking one question: am I safe? And it is answering that question based on signals from your body, your environment, and your relationships. When the signals say safe, your parasympathetic system can activate and bring you back to calm. When the signals say danger, your sympathetic system stays on high alert. The problem is that a dysregulated nervous system has a broken safety detector. It perceives danger where none exists. It interprets neutral situations as threatening. It never gets the signal that allows it to stand down. Healing your nervous system means learning to create internal safety. It means sending signals to your body that override the false alarms. It means teaching your amygdala that the old dangers are over and that right now, in this moment, you are okay. This cannot be done through logic alone. Remember, the amygdala does not speak the language of reason. It speaks the language of sensation, of breath, of body. Which is why the practices in this audiobook focus on somatic approaches. Approaches that communicate directly with your nervous system in its native language. You have now learned how your alarm system was programmed. You understand why your body reacts before your mind can catch up. You see the connection between past experiences and present stress. But understanding is only the first step. Knowledge without action changes nothing. In the next chapter, we will examine why the strategies you have tried before did not work. You will learn the critical mistake that keeps most people stuck in cycles of anxiety, and why working harder at the wrong approach will never set you free. This is where everything shifts. This is where you stop fighting your nervous system and start working with it. Stay with me. The breakthrough is coming. Chapter 4. Why nothing has worked. You have tried everything. And I mean everything. You have downloaded the meditation apps. You have journaled until your hand cramped. You have repeated affirmations in the mirror, forced yourself to think positive, and bought books with promising titles that now sit unfinished on your shelf. You have tried yoga, therapy, breathing exercises, gratitude lists, cold showers, supplements, and that one technique your friend swore would change your life. Some of it helped, for a while, and then the anxiety came back. The stress returned. The same patterns that have followed you for years showed up again, as if nothing had changed. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a dark thought began to form. Maybe the problem is me. Maybe I am just not trying hard enough. Maybe I am fundamentally broken in a way that cannot be fixed. I need you to hear this clearly. That thought is a lie. And in this chapter, I am going to show you exactly why everything you have tried has failed, and why the failure has nothing to do with your effort, your discipline, or your worth. The problem is not you. The problem is that you have been given the wrong tools for the job. Let me explain. There is a fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of almost every stress reduction technique on the market. It is an assumption so deeply embedded that most people never question it. And this assumption is the reason millions of people remain trapped in anxiety despite their best efforts. The assumption is this: that stress and anxiety are problems of the mind, and therefore the solution must also be in the mind. Think positive thoughts. Change your beliefs. Reframe your perspective. Challenge your cognitive distortions. Tell yourself a different story. This approach is not completely wrong. Cognitive techniques can be helpful, but they are trying to solve a body problem with a mind solution. And that is like trying to fix a broken leg with a pep talk. Here is what the science actually shows. A comprehensive 2020 meta-analysis from the American Psychological Association reviewed over 200 studies on anxiety interventions. The finding that shocked the research community was this: purely cognitive approaches, techniques focused on changing thoughts, had only a 31% long-term success rate for chronic anxiety. 31%. That means nearly 7 out of 10 people who try to think their way out of anxiety will still be anxious years later. But the same analysis found something else. Approaches that combined cognitive work with somatic practices, body-based interventions, had success rates above 70%. The difference is not subtle. It is more than double the effectiveness. And yet, most people have never been taught the body-based practices that actually work. Let me show you exactly why cognitive approaches alone fail. Remember what you learned in the previous chapters. When your amygdala sounds the alarm, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, goes offline. Blood flow decreases. Neural activity drops. The very tool you need to think differently becomes unavailable precisely when you need it most. So when someone tells you to just think positive while you are in the grip of anxiety, they are asking you to use a part of your brain that has been temporarily disabled. It is like asking someone to run a marathon with a broken leg. The intention is good. The execution is impossible. But there is an even deeper problem with purely cognitive approaches. Your nervous system does not believe your thoughts. You can tell yourself you are safe 1,000 times. You can recite affirmations until you lose your voice. You can logically understand that there is no real danger. But none of that changes what your body is experiencing. Your racing heart does not slow down because you think calm thoughts. Your tight shoulders do not release because you tell them to relax. Your churning stomach does not settle because you understand that the threat is not real. Your nervous system is not listening to your words. It is listening to signals from your body, your breath, your posture, your muscle tension, your facial expression. And until those signals change, your nervous system will continue doing exactly what it has been doing. This is why willpower fails. This is why positive thinking provides only temporary relief. This is why you can know something intellectually while feeling something completely different emotionally. The mind and body are not separate, but the body leads and the mind follows. Now let me address the second major reason your previous attempts have failed. You have been treating symptoms instead of the source. Most stress reduction techniques focus on what to do when you are already anxious. They teach you coping mechanisms. They give you strategies for managing panic attacks. They help you survive the moments when your nervous system has already been hijacked. And while these tools can be valuable in a crisis, they do nothing to prevent the crisis from happening in the first place. Think of it this way. Imagine you live in a house with a faulty smoke detector. Every few hours, the alarm goes off for no reason. There is no fire, no smoke, no danger, just a screaming alarm that sends you into panic. Now imagine someone gives you the world's best earplugs. They teach you how to breathe through the noise. They help you develop coping strategies for when the alarm sounds. Would you consider the problem solved? Of course not, because the alarm is still going off. The earplugs just help you tolerate a situation that should not be happening in the first place. This is exactly what most anxiety treatments do. They give you better earplugs. They teach you to cope with a dysregulated nervous system instead of teaching you to regulate the nervous system itself. The 7-step method you will learn in this audiobook is different. It does not teach you to cope with the alarm. It teaches you to recalibrate the alarm system so it stops firing when there is no danger. This is a fundamentally different approach, and it is why this method succeeds where others fail. Now let me address the third reason your previous attempts have not worked. You have been inconsistent because the practices did not match your nervous system state. Here is something nobody tells you about meditation, breath work, and mindfulness. These practices only work if your nervous system is in the right state to receive them. If your nervous system is severely dysregulated, if you are stuck in chronic fight, flight, or freeze, then sitting quietly and trying to meditate can actually make things worse. The stillness gives your anxious mind more space to spiral. The silence amplifies the internal chaos. The attempt to relax triggers more stress because relaxation feels unsafe to a nervous system on high alert. A 2018 study from Brown University's Contemplative Studies Initiative found that approximately 14% of people who try meditation experience increased anxiety rather than decreased anxiety. For people with trauma histories or chronic stress, that number rises to over 25%. This is not because meditation is bad. It is because meditation is a tool, and like any tool, it only works when applied correctly to the right situation. You would not use a hammer to cut wood. You would not use a saw to drive nails. And you would not use a relaxation technique on a nervous system that does not yet know how to feel safe. The 7-step method addresses this problem directly. It starts with practices that meet your nervous system where it is. It does not ask you to relax when relaxation feels threatening. It does not demand stillness when your body needs to move. It works with your current state, not against it, and gradually guides you toward regulation. This is why consistency becomes possible. When the practices actually match your nervous system's needs, you do not have to force yourself to do them. They feel like relief, not like another item on your self-improvement checklist. Now let me show you the difference between how most people approach stress and how those who actually heal approach it. The average person waits until they are overwhelmed, then frantically searches for something to make the feeling stop. They meditate for a week, feel slightly better, and then abandon the practice when life gets busy. They try one technique, get disappointed when it does not produce instant results, and move on to the next promising solution. They treat their stress like a problem to be fixed and then forgotten. The person who actually transforms their relationship with stress does something completely different. They understand that nervous system regulation is not a one-time fix, but a daily practice. They commit to 10 minutes a day regardless of how they feel. They approach the work with patience, knowing that rewiring neural pathways takes time. They do not expect instant results, but they trust the process because they understand the science behind it. This is not about having more willpower. This is about having the right approach. The average person is trying to bail water out of a sinking boat. The transformed person has learned to patch the hole. I also want to address something that keeps many people stuck: the belief that you need to understand your trauma in order to heal from it. This belief has been reinforced by decades of talk therapy that focuses on analyzing the past, understanding why you are the way you are, and developing insight into your patterns. And while understanding can be valuable, it is not required for healing. Your body can release stored stress without your mind ever knowing where that stress came from. Remember, trauma is stored in the body, not just the mind. The memories live in your muscles, your fascia, your nervous system. And these tissues do not need to tell you their stories in order to let them go. A 2022 study from the University of Amsterdam's Department of Clinical Psychology found that somatic approaches, body-based therapies, were equally effective for people who remembered their trauma in detail and for people who had no conscious memory of traumatic events. Your body already knows what happened. Your body already knows how to heal. You do not need to excavate every painful memory or understand every childhood wound. You just need to give your nervous system the right signals, and it will do the rest. This is liberating news for anyone who has spent years in therapy trying to understand their past without experiencing lasting change. You can heal without remembering what hurt you. Your body knows the way. Now, let me tell you what does work. What works is approaching your nervous system on its own terms. What works is sending signals of safety through your breath, your body, your voice, and your environment. What works is daily practice that is short enough to be sustainable and targeted enough to create real change. What works is the 7-step method you are about to learn. This method is not based on positive thinking. It is not based on willpower. It is not based on understanding your trauma or changing your beliefs. It is based on the simple, scientific reality that your nervous system responds to specific signals. And when you learn to send those signals consistently, your baseline state shifts from stress to calm. 10 minutes a day. That is all it takes. Not because the work is shallow, but because the work is precise. You will learn exactly which practices create the biggest impact in the shortest time. You will understand why each step works and how it speaks to your nervous system. And you will build a daily ritual that rewires your brain without requiring heroic effort. Everything you have tried before was not wasted. It taught you what does not work. It showed you the limits of the mind-only approach. It prepared you for this moment, when you finally receive the tools that match the problem. In the next chapter, you will learn the complete 7-step framework. You will see how each step builds on the last, creating a comprehensive system for nervous system reset. You will understand exactly what to do, when to do it, and why it works. This is where knowledge becomes transformation. This is where understanding becomes practice. This is where everything changes. Your healing journey starts in the next chapter. And I promise you, what comes next is worth every moment you have spent searching for answers. Let us begin. Chapter 5. The 7-Step Reset Framework. What if I told you that the difference between a life dominated by stress and a life of calm clarity comes down to 7 steps? 7 specific actions, performed in a specific order for just 10 minutes a day. Not 7 years of therapy. Not 7 months of intensive practice. 7 steps that speak directly to your nervous system in its own language. This is the framework that changes everything. In this chapter, you will learn the complete 7-step reset method. You will understand why each step matters and how they work together as an integrated system. You will see the architecture of transformation laid out before you, step by step, in a sequence designed by neuroscience and refined by real-world results. By the end of this chapter, you will have the blueprint. In the chapters that follow, you will learn exactly how to execute each step. But first, you need to see the whole picture. Here is the framework that will reset your nervous system. Step 1. Recognize. Step 2. Breathe. Step 3. Ground. Step 4. Activate. Step 5. Release. Step 6. Integrate. Step 7. Protect. 7 steps. 10 minutes. A complete reset. Let me show you why this specific sequence matters. Your nervous system does not respond to random interventions. It responds to signals delivered in the right order, at the right time, in the right way. Skip a step, and the whole system falters. Rearrange the order, and you lose the compounding effect that makes this method so powerful. Think of it like a combination lock. The numbers matter, but the sequence matters just as much. 3, 7, 2 will not open the same lock as 7, 2, 3, even though the numbers are identical. The 7-step framework is designed as a cascade. Each step creates the conditions for the next step to work. Each step builds on what came before. And by the time you reach step 7, your nervous system has received a complete set of instructions that shift it from survival mode to safety. This is not something I invented. This sequence emerged from 2 decades of research across multiple disciplines: neuroscience, somatic psychology, polyvagal theory, and trauma resolution. It represents the convergence of what actually works, distilled into a practical daily protocol. A 2021 study from the University of California, San Francisco's Department of Psychiatry tested variations of somatic intervention sequences. The researchers found that the order of practices mattered almost as much as the practices themselves. Interventions delivered in a specific cascade sequence showed 47% greater effectiveness than the same interventions delivered in random order. 47%, nearly half again as effective, simply by arranging the same tools in the right sequence. This is why the 7-step framework works when other approaches fail. It is not just what you do. It is the order in which you do it. Now let me walk you through each step so you understand the purpose before you learn the practice. Step 1. Recognize. Before you can reset your nervous system, you must first notice that it needs resetting. This sounds obvious, but most people miss it entirely. Dysregulation becomes so familiar that it feels normal. The chronic tension in your shoulders. The shallow breathing that has become your default. The low-grade anxiety humming in the background of every moment. You stop noticing because it has always been there. Step 1 teaches you to recognize the early warning signs of nervous system activation. You will learn to identify the subtle signals that appear before full-blown stress takes over. You will develop what researchers call interoceptive awareness, the ability to sense what is happening inside your own body. This is not about analyzing or judging your state. It is simply about noticing. Recognition creates a gap, and in that gap, choice becomes possible. Without step 1, you are always reacting after the fact. With step 1, You catch the activation early, when intervention is easiest and most effective. Step 2. Breathe. Once you recognize that your system is activated, you need a way to send an immediate signal of safety. Breath is that signal, but not just any breath. The specific breathing pattern you will learn in this method is designed to activate your parasympathetic nervous system directly. It extends the exhale, stimulates the vagus nerve, and tells every cell in your body that the danger has passed. This is not the deep breathing you have tried before. This is precision breath work, calibrated to create maximum impact in minimum time. 90 seconds of this specific pattern can shift your nervous system state more effectively than 30 minutes of random deep breathing. Step 2 is your emergency brake. When the alarm is sounding, this is how you begin to quiet it. Step 3. Ground. Breath starts the reset, but your body needs more than air to feel safe. It needs connection. Connection to the present moment. Connection to the physical world. Connection to the solid reality beneath your feet. Grounding brings you out of the spinning stories in your head and into the concrete sensations of your body. It anchors you in the here and now, where most of the dangers your nervous system fears do not actually exist. The grounding techniques in Step 3 are not abstract visualization exercises. They are physical practices that create real sensory input. Input that tells your brain you are located in space, stable, supported, and present. When your nervous system is in survival mode, it loses track of the present. It time travels to past traumas and future catastrophes. Step 3 brings it back. Back to this moment. Back to safety. Step 4. Activate. This is where the reset goes deeper. Steps 1 through 3 have quieted the alarm and stabilized your system. Now it is time to activate the specific nerve that controls your stress response. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It runs from your brainstem through your face, throat, heart, lungs, and digestive system. It is the primary channel through which your brain and body communicate about safety and danger. When your vagus nerve is activated, it triggers a cascade of calming responses throughout your entire system. Heart rate decreases. Blood pressure normalizes. Digestion resumes. Inflammation reduces. The stress hormones in your bloodstream begin to clear. Step 4 teaches you specific practices that stimulate the vagus nerve directly. Humming, singing, cold exposure. Specific movements that activate the vagal pathways. These practices are simple, quick, and remarkably effective. Research from the Laureate Institute for Brain Research shows that vagal toning exercises can reduce anxiety symptoms by up to 60% within 4 weeks of consistent practice. This is not a subtle effect. This is transformation. Step 5. Release. Your body has been storing stress for years, perhaps decades. The tension in your muscles is not just physical tightness. It is the residue of every incomplete stress response, every suppressed emotion, every moment your body prepared to fight or flee but could not. Step 5 teaches you to release this stored tension through somatic practices. These are gentle movements that allow your body to complete the stress cycles that were interrupted. Shaking, tremoring, specific stretches that target the areas where trauma tends to accumulate. This is not exercise. This is not about building strength or flexibility. This is about giving your body permission to let go of what it has been holding. When you practice somatic release consistently, something remarkable happens. The chronic tension that has lived in your body for years begins to dissolve. Not because you forced it out, but because you finally gave it a pathway to leave. Step 6. Integrate. The first 5 steps have reset your nervous system. But a reset that does not integrate is a reset that does not last. Step 6 is about allowing your system to absorb the changes. It is a brief period of stillness, not forced meditation, but natural rest. A moment for your brain to consolidate the new patterns. A pause that tells your nervous system this calm state is safe to maintain. Integration is often skipped because it feels like doing nothing. But this apparent nothing is where the real rewiring happens. Your brain needs time to encode the new state. Without integration, you reset and immediately re-stress. Step 6 takes only 60 to 90 seconds. But those seconds are what transform a temporary state into a lasting trait. Step 7. Protect. The final step is about extending your reset into the rest of your day. It is about creating conditions that support your regulated state rather than undermine it. Step 7 teaches you to set up your environment, your schedule, and your boundaries in ways that protect your nervous system from unnecessary activation. It is about making strategic choices that reduce the total stress load on your system. This is not about avoiding life. It is about engaging with life from a regulated state rather than a dysregulated one. When you are calm at your core, you can handle challenges that would have overwhelmed you before. Step 7 also teaches you what to do when triggers inevitably arise during your day. Quick micro-practices that take 30 seconds or less. Emergency protocols for moments of intense activation. Tools that keep your reset intact even when life gets difficult. Now let me show you how this framework changes everything. The average person experiences stress and reacts to it. They are always one step behind, always responding to what has already happened, always trying to recover from the last activation before the next one arrives. Someone who practices the 7-step method operates differently. They start each day with a regulated nervous system. They have built a baseline of calm that is more resilient to disruption. When triggers arise, they have tools that work immediately, and they have built a lifestyle that supports their regulation rather than constantly threatening it. The difference is not just in how they feel. The difference is in how they live, in what they are capable of, in who they become. People with regulated nervous systems make better decisions. They have more patience with the people they love. They think more clearly under pressure. They sleep more deeply. They experience more joy. They have access to the full range of human experience instead of being trapped in survival mode. This is not about becoming superhuman. This is about becoming fully human. About having access to the capabilities your nervous system has been blocking in its attempt to keep you safe. The 7 steps give you that access. 10 minutes a day, every day, and within weeks, you will feel the difference. A clinical trial from Massachusetts General Hospital found that participants who practiced a similar 7-component protocol showed measurable changes in brain structure after just 8 weeks. The amygdala, the alarm system, actually shrank. The prefrontal cortex, the captain, showed increased gray matter density. The brain literally rewired itself in response to consistent practice. 8 weeks, less than 2 months. And the physical structure of the brain changes. This is what is possible. This is what the 7-step framework offers. Not a temporary fix, but a fundamental transformation in how your brain and body operate. In the next chapter, you will learn the detailed practices for steps 1, 2, and 3. Recognition, breath, and grounding. You will receive specific instructions you can begin using immediately. You will start creating the gap between trigger and response. This is where knowledge becomes embodied. This is where understanding becomes transformation. The framework is complete. Now it is time to learn the practices. Take a breath. You are ready for this. Chapter 6, Steps 1 to 3, Creating the Gap. Between every trigger and every reaction, there is a space. A gap. A moment where something different becomes possible. Most people have never experienced this gap. Their triggers lead instantly to reactions, as if connected by an unbreakable wire. Something happens, and before they know it, their heart is racing, their thoughts are spiraling, and their body has already decided how to respond. But that wire is not unbreakable. That instant reaction is not inevitable. And in the next few minutes, you will learn exactly how to create the gap that changes everything. Steps 1, 2, and 3 of the 7-step framework are designed for one purpose: to interrupt the automatic stress response before it takes over, to create space between what happens to you and how you respond, to give you back the power of choice. Let us begin with step 1, recognize. Here is a truth that will save you years of struggle. You cannot change what you do not notice. Every time your nervous system activates without your awareness, you lose the opportunity to intervene. Every time stress builds below the surface of consciousness, it gains momentum that becomes harder to stop. Recognition is the foundation of everything that follows. But most people are disconnected from their bodies. They live in their heads, lost in thoughts about the past and future, barely aware of what is happening in their physical form. They notice they are stressed only when the stress has become overwhelming, when the panic attack is already underway, when the anger has already exploded, when the shutdown has already taken hold. By then, it is too late for prevention. All you can do is damage control. The practice of recognition teaches you to notice the early signals, the subtle shifts that happen before full activation, the whispers your body sends before it starts screaming. Here is what those early signals look like. In your body, you might notice a slight increase in heart rate, a subtle tightening in your chest or throat, tension creeping into your shoulders or jaw, a change in your breathing, shorter, shallower, faster, a sensation in your stomach that something is not quite right. In your mind, you might notice your thoughts beginning to speed up, a slight increase in mental chatter, the beginning of worry or rumination, a sense of being pulled out of the present moment. In your behavior, you might notice restlessness, difficulty sitting still, the urge to check your phone compulsively, reaching for food or drink when you are not hungry or thirsty, snapping at small irritations that would normally not bother you. These are the early warning signs. These are the signals that your nervous system is beginning to shift from calm to activated. And when you learn to catch them early, you gain the power to intervene before the cascade takes over. Here is the recognition practice you will use every day. 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. You will pause for 30 seconds. Set a reminder on your phone if you need to. And in those 30 seconds, you will ask yourself one simple question. What is happening in my body right now? Not what should be happening. Not what you want to be happening. Just what is actually present. Scan from your head to your feet. Notice your jaw. Is it clenched or relaxed? Notice your shoulders. Are they raised toward your ears or dropped and soft? Notice your chest. Is there tightness or openness? Notice your belly. Is it gripped or at ease? Notice your breath. Is it full and slow or short and shallow? You are not trying to change anything. You are only noticing, building the habit of awareness, training yourself to feel what your body is experiencing before your mind tells you a story about it. A 2019 study from the University of Toronto's Department of Psychology found that people who practiced body awareness 3 times daily for 4 weeks showed a 41% improvement in their ability to recognize early stress signals. They caught activation an average of 3 minutes earlier than before the training. 3 minutes might not sound like much, but in those 3 minutes, your stress hormones have not yet peaked. Your prefrontal cortex is still online. Your ability to choose a different response is still intact. 3 minutes of early warning is the difference between a small course correction and a full emergency intervention. The average person waits until they are overwhelmed before they notice they are stressed. They miss every early signal, every opportunity to intervene, every chance to prevent the cascade. Someone who practices recognition operates with an early warning system. They feel the first ripples of activation and respond before those ripples become waves. They maintain awareness of their internal state even while engaged with the external world. This is not hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is scanning the external environment for threats. Recognition is sensing the internal environment for signals. One keeps you trapped in fear. The other gives you power over your response. Practice recognition for 1 week before adding the other steps. Let it become automatic. Let body awareness become your new normal. This foundation will make everything else more effective. Now let us move to step 2, breathe. You have been breathing your entire life, but you have probably never breathed in a way that directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system. You have probably never used breath as a precision tool for nervous system regulation. This is about to change. Here is the science. Your breath is the only autonomic function that is both automatic and voluntary. Your heart beats without your control. Your digestion happens without your input. But your breath you can control. And when you control your breath in specific ways, you send direct signals to your vagus nerve. The vagus nerve then communicates with your brain, telling it that the environment is safe and it is time to stand down from high alert. The key is in the exhale. When you inhale, you activate your sympathetic nervous system slightly. Your heart rate increases by a few beats. When you exhale, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Your heart rate decreases. This is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it is completely normal. But here is the insight that changes everything. When your exhale is longer than your inhale, you create a net parasympathetic effect. You are telling your nervous system, with every breath, that it is safe to calm down. The breathing pattern you will use is simple but specific. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold briefly at the top for a count of 2. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Hold briefly at the bottom for a count of 2. 4 in, 2 hold, 6 out, 2 hold. Repeat. This pattern, called extended exhale breathing, has been studied extensively. Research from the HeartMath Institute shows that just 90 seconds of this breathing pattern can shift heart rate variability, a key marker of nervous system state, from stress to calm. 90 seconds. That is all it takes for your physiology to begin changing. But here is what makes this practice truly powerful. You do it immediately after recognition. The moment you notice early signs of activation, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, the subtle tension, you begin the breathing pattern. You do not wait until the stress has built. You do not try to think your way calm. You immediately shift to breath. This creates a conditioned response. Over time, the act of recognition itself triggers the calming breath. Your body learns that noticing stress is the cue to begin regulating. The gap between trigger and response becomes automatic. When you practice the breathing technique, do not force it. The breath should feel like a gentle wave, not a struggle. If a 6-count exhale feels too long, start with 5. If 4 counts feels rushed, extend it to 5. The ratio matters more than the exact numbers. Your exhale should be longer than your inhale by at least 2 counts. Practice this breathing pattern for 2 minutes, twice a day, independent of any stress activation. This builds your capacity. Then, when you recognize early stress signals, you have a well-trained tool ready to deploy. Here is something most people discover within the first week of practice. The breath does not just calm you down. It changes how you think. When your nervous system is activated, your thinking becomes narrow, rigid, and threat-focused. You lose access to creativity, nuance, and perspective. You see problems, but not solutions. You notice dangers, but not opportunities. When your nervous system is calm, your thinking opens up. The prefrontal cortex comes back online. You can see the bigger picture. You can access wisdom that was unavailable moments before. This is why step 2 is so crucial. Breath does not just change how you feel. It changes what you are capable of. Now let us complete the gap creation with step 3, ground. Breath has begun calming your system, but your mind may still be spinning. Your thoughts may still be pulling you into past regrets or future worries. You need something to anchor you in the present moment where safety actually exists. This is what grounding provides. Grounding is not about positive thinking or visualization. It is about sensation. Real, physical, undeniable sensation that connects you to the present moment. Your nervous system cannot be anxious about the future if it is fully absorbed in present moment sensation. It cannot be traumatized by the past if it is completely engaged with what is happening right now. Grounding uses this fact to bring your system into the only moment that actually exists. Here is the grounding technique you will use. It is called 5-4-3-2-1, and it works through your senses. First, notice 5 things you can see. Not elaborate descriptions, just simple acknowledgement. The lamp on the desk, the pattern on the curtain, the light from the window, the color of the wall, the book on the shelf. Let your eyes rest on each one for a moment. Then, notice 4 things you can physically feel. The weight of your body in the chair, the texture of fabric against your skin, the temperature of the air on your face, the pressure of your feet against the floor. Next, notice 3 things you can hear. The hum of electronics, a distant car, your own breath. Even in silence, there is always something. Then, notice 2 things you can smell. This might require you to bring something close. The scent of your coffee, the smell of your own skin. If you cannot identify 2 distinct smells, simply notice the quality of the air. Finally, notice 1 thing you can taste. The residue of your last drink. The taste of your own mouth. the sensation of your tongue against your teeth. This entire sequence takes about 60 seconds. And in that 60 seconds, you have pulled your attention completely out of your head and into your body. You have anchored yourself in present moment reality. You have given your nervous system undeniable evidence that right now, in this moment, you are safe. A 2020 study from Columbia University's Department of Psychiatry tested grounding techniques in patients with anxiety disorders. The 5-4-3-2-1 method reduced acute anxiety symptoms by an average of 47% within 2 minutes of practice. 47% reduction. 2 minutes. No medication. No therapy session. Just deliberate attention to present moment sensation. Here is why this matters for nervous system reset. Your amygdala, your alarm system, is constantly scanning for threats. But it cannot scan both the external environment and your internal sensory experience at the same time. When you flood your system with sensory information, you essentially occupy the threat detection machinery with neutral data. The alarm cannot sound while it is busy processing the color of the wall and the texture of your shirt. The system cannot catastrophize about the future while it is fully engaged with the temperature of the air right now. Grounding is not distraction. Distraction is temporary and leaves the underlying activation unchanged. Grounding is redirection. It channels your nervous system's attention towards safety-confirming information. Now let me show you how these 3 steps work together. You are sitting at your desk. An email arrives. You notice a slight tightening in your chest, a quickening of your thoughts. This is recognition. Step 1 complete. Without analyzing the email further, without reading it again, without spiraling into worst-case scenarios, you immediately shift to breath. For in through the nose. Hold for 2. 6 out through the mouth. Hold for 2. You repeat this 4 times. 90 seconds pass. Your heart rate has slowed. Step 2 complete. Now you ground. 5 things you see: the monitor, the plant, your coffee cup, the window, your hand on the desk. For things you feel: the chair beneath you, your feet on the floor, the keyboard under your fingers, the weight of your watch. 3 things you hear: the air conditioning, distant voices, your own breath. 2 things you smell: coffee, paper. 1 thing you taste: the residue of your morning drink. 60 seconds. Step 3 complete. Now you read the email again, and you notice something remarkable. The same words that triggered you moments ago do not have the same charge. You can see them clearly. You can respond thoughtfully. You have access to your full intelligence. This is the gap. This is what it feels like to choose your response instead of being hijacked by your reaction. The average person reads the email, reacts emotionally, sends a defensive reply they later regret, and spends the rest of the day with elevated stress hormones circulating through their bloodstream. The person who practices these 3 steps reads the email, notices the activation, resets their system, and responds from a place of clarity. Same email, same situation, completely different outcome. 3 steps, 3 minutes total. A completely different experience of the same event. In the next chapter, you will learn steps 4 and 5, activate and release. You will discover specific practices for toning your vagus nerve and releasing stored tension from your body. The gap you have learned to create will deepen into lasting transformation. But first, practice these 3 steps. Practice them until they become reflexive. Practice them until recognition triggers breath automatically, until breath flows into grounding naturally, until the sequence becomes as familiar as brushing your teeth. This is where your healing becomes embodied. This is where knowledge lives in your body, not just your mind. The gap is now yours. What you do with it changes everything. Chapter 7, Steps 4 to 5, Activating the Reset. There is a nerve inside your body that holds the key to everything you have been searching for. It runs from your brainstem all the way down to your gut. It touches your heart, your lungs, your throat, your face. And when you learn to activate it intentionally, you gain direct access to the calm that has eluded you for years. This nerve is called the vagus nerve, and in the next few minutes, you will learn how to turn it on. Steps 1 through 3 created the gap. They interrupted the automatic stress response and gave you space to choose. Now, steps 4 and 5 will deepen that reset into something permanent. They will not just pause your stress, they will rewire the system that creates it. Let us begin with step 4, activate. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in your body. Its name comes from the Latin word for wandering, and it wanders everywhere. From your brain through your face, throat, heart, lungs, and all the way down to your intestines. It is the primary communication highway between your brain and your body. But here is what makes the vagus nerve so important for stress. It is the main channel of your parasympathetic nervous system. When the vagus nerve is activated, it tells every organ it touches that the danger has passed. Heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, digestion resumes, inflammation decreases. The entire body shifts from survival mode to recovery mode. The strength of your vagus nerve's influence is called vagal tone, and vagal tone can be measured, trained, and improved. People with high vagal tone recover from stress quickly. They return to baseline after challenges. They have more emotional resilience, better immune function, and lower levels of inflammation. People with low vagal tone stay activated long after the stressor has passed. They struggle to calm down. They carry tension that accumulates day after day. A 2018 study from the University of North Carolina found that vagal tone is one of the strongest predictors of mental health outcomes, stronger than income, education, or even social support. People with high vagal tone were 64% less likely to develop anxiety disorders and 53% less likely to experience depression. The good news is that vagal tone is not fixed. It is trainable, and the practices you are about to learn will train it directly. Here is your first vagus nerve activation technique: extended exhale breathing with vocalization. You already learned the basic extended exhale breath in step 2. Now you will add something that dramatically increases its effectiveness: sound. The vagus nerve passes directly through your throat. When you create vibration in your throat through humming, singing, or chanting, you physically stimulate the vagus nerve. This is not metaphor. This is anatomy. The vibration massages the nerve and activates the parasympathetic response. Here's the practice. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Then, as you exhale for a count of 6, hum at a comfortable pitch. Feel the vibration in your throat, your chest, your face. Let the sound be gentle and sustained, not forced or loud. Repeat this humming breath for 2 minutes. That is all. 2 minutes of humming. And research from the Indian Journal of Physiology and Pharmacology shows that this simple practice can increase vagal tone by up to 23% within a single session. If humming feels awkward, you can achieve a similar effect through singing. Any song works, but songs with long phrases that require extended exhales are most effective. Singing in the shower, singing along to music in your car, singing while you cook. All of these activities are secretly vagus nerve training. This is why singing feels good. This is why humming is naturally calming. Your body already knows these practices work. Now you understand why. Here is your second vagus nerve activation technique: cold exposure. When cold water touches your face and neck, it triggers something called the dive reflex. This is an ancient survival mechanism shared by all mammals. When your face detects cold water, your body immediately activates the parasympathetic nervous system to conserve oxygen and slow metabolism. You can use this reflex intentionally. The simplest method is to splash cold water on your face and neck. Do this for 30 seconds. Feel the shock of the cold, then notice what happens in your body. Your heart rate will slow. Your breathing will deepen. The activation you were feeling moments ago will begin to dissolve. A more intense version is to end your shower with 30 to 60 seconds of cold water. Start at your feet and legs, then move to your arms and chest, and finally let the cold water run over your face and the back of your neck, where the vagus nerve is most accessible. A 2022 study from the University of Portsmouth found that regular cold exposure training increased vagal tone by 31% over 8 weeks. Participants reported significant reductions in stress, improved mood, and better emotional regulation. You do not need ice baths or extreme protocols. 30 seconds of cold water on your face is enough to activate the dive reflex. 60 seconds at the end of your shower is enough to train your vagal tone over time. Here is your third vagus nerve activation technique, the high five your heart practice. This technique combines physical touch with breath to create a powerful calming signal. Place your right hand over your heart. Feel the warmth of your palm against your chest. Feel your heartbeat beneath your hand. Now take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, gently press your hand into your chest with slight pressure. Not hard, just enough to feel the connection. As you continue breathing slowly, imagine sending warmth and safety from your hand into your heart. Imagine your heart receiving this message and slowing down, relaxing, softening. This might sound too simple to be effective, but research from the HeartMath Institute shows that the combination of cardiac touch and slow breathing creates measurable changes in heart rate variability within 90 seconds. The physical sensation of the hand on the heart activates touch receptors that signal safety to the nervous system. Do this for 2 minutes. Feel the connection between your hand and your heart. Notice what shifts. Now let me show you how the average person approaches these practices versus someone who achieves lasting transformation. The average person tries a vagus nerve technique once or twice. They feel some effect, but when life gets busy, they forget about it. They never build the consistency required for lasting change. Their vagal tone remains low, and they continue struggling with stress that takes too long to resolve. Someone who transforms their nervous system approaches these practices differently. They commit to one activation technique every single day, regardless of how they feel. They understand that they are training a physiological capacity, not just managing symptoms. They see these 2 minutes as non-negotiable, like brushing their teeth. Over weeks, their vagal tone improves. Their baseline shifts. They recover from stress faster. They have access to calm that was impossible before, not because they have more willpower, but because they have trained their body to respond differently. This is the difference between coping and capacity. Coping is what you do when stress arrives. Capacity is your ability to handle stress before it overwhelms you. These practices build capacity. Now let us move to step 5, release. Your body has been storing unprocessed stress for your entire life. Every moment you felt scared but could not run. Every time you felt angry but could not fight. Every instance you wanted to cry but held it in. All of this energy had to go somewhere. It went into your body, into your muscles, your fascia, your connective tissue. It became the chronic tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your hips, the locked jaw, the shallow breath. This stored stress is not just physical discomfort. It is unfinished business. It is incomplete stress cycles that your body is still trying to process. And until you give your body a way to complete these cycles, the stress will remain stored. Step 5 teaches you somatic release, specific practices that allow your body to discharge what it has been holding. Here is your first release technique, therapeutic shaking. Animals in the wild naturally shake after a stressful encounter. A gazelle that escapes a lion will shake vigorously for several minutes, then walk away calmly and return to grazing. The shaking discharges the stress hormones and completes the survival response. Humans have this same capacity, but we have learned to suppress it. We hold still. We stay composed. We push down the trembling because it feels embarrassing or out of control. The therapeutic shaking practice gives you permission to shake intentionally. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent. Begin to bounce gently, letting your knees be soft. Allow your arms to hang loose and shake with the movement. Let your jaw relax. Let your shoulders drop. Start bouncing a little more vigorously. Let the shaking move through your whole body. Your legs, your hips, your spine, your arms, your hands. Shake like you are shivering, but bigger. Do not control it. Let your body find its own rhythm. Continue for 2 to 3 minutes. This might feel strange at first. You might feel self-conscious or silly. That is normal. But notice what happens afterward. Notice the release of tension. Notice the warmth that spreads through your limbs. Notice the unexpected emotion that might arise. A 2017 study from the Trauma Research Foundation found that patients who practiced therapeutic shaking for 3 minutes daily showed a 47% reduction in trauma symptoms over 6 weeks. The practice allowed their bodies to complete stress responses that had been frozen for years, sometimes decades. Here is your second release technique: tension and release scanning. Lie down or sit comfortably. You are going to move through your body, deliberately tensing and then releasing each muscle group. Start with your feet. Curl your toes tightly. Hold for 5 seconds, then release completely. Notice the difference between tension and relaxation. Move to your calves. Flex them hard. Hold for 5 seconds. Release. Continue upward. Thighs, buttocks, stomach, chest, hands, arms, shoulders, face. Tense each area deliberately. Hold it, then let go completely. The deliberate tensing teaches your nervous system what tension feels like. The release teaches it what relaxation feels like. Over time, your body becomes better at recognizing unnecessary tension and letting it go. This entire practice takes about 5 minutes. Do it once daily, preferably before bed. You will notice that sleep comes easier and that you wake with less accumulated tension. Here is your third release technique: the jaw and hip release. The jaw and hips are the two areas where the body stores the most stress. They are connected through the psoas muscle, which runs from your spine through your pelvis. When you are in chronic stress, both areas lock up. For the jaw release, open your mouth as wide as comfortable. Move your jaw slowly from side to side. Let it hang loose. Yawn deliberately, even if you do not feel tired. Place your fingertips on your jaw muscles and massage in small circles while letting your mouth hang slightly open. For the hip release, lie on your back with your knees bent. Let your knees fall open to the sides, soles of your feet together. This is called supported butterfly position. Stay here for 2 to 3 minutes, breathing slowly and allowing gravity to gently open your hips. These two releases can be done separately or together. They target the areas that accumulate the most tension and create the most restriction in your nervous system. Now I want you to understand something important about release. When you begin releasing stored tension, emotions may arise. Unexpected sadness, old anger, grief you did not know you were carrying. This is normal. This is healthy. This is your body finally processing what it has been holding. You do not need to understand these emotions. You do not need to know where they came from or what they mean. You just need to let them move through you without resistance. Cry if tears come. Let yourself feel angry if anger arises. Breathe through it. Trust that your body knows what it is doing. This is emotional healing happening in real time. This is the completion of stress cycles that may have been frozen for years. This is liberation. The average person feels an emotion arise during release practice and immediately tries to stop it. They suppress, distract, or analyze. They interrupt the very process that would free them. Someone who heals allows the emotion to move. They understand that feeling is healing. They trust the body's wisdom. And when the emotion passes, as it always does, they feel lighter than before. Steps 4 and 5 together take about 5 to 7 minutes. Combined with steps 1 through 3, your daily practice totals approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes to activate your vagus nerve. 10 minutes to release stored tension. 10 minutes to transform your relationship with stress from one of constant struggle to one of growing freedom. In the next chapter, you will learn steps 6 and 7, integration and protection. You will discover how to lock in the changes you have created and how to protect your regulated state throughout your day. The reset is happening. Your nervous system is changing. And what comes next will ensure those changes last. Stay with me. We are building something permanent. Chapter 8, Steps 6 to 7, Integration and Protection. Everything you have done so far can be undone in seconds. The recognition, the breathing, the grounding, the activation, the release. All of it can dissolve the moment you step back into a dysregulating environment. This is why most people fail. Not because they do not practice, but because they practice in isolation and then return to lives that systematically destroy everything they have built. Steps 6 and 7 are different from everything that came before. They are not about what you do during your 10-minute practice. They are about what happens in the other 23 hours and 50 minutes of your day. These final 2 steps will determine whether your reset becomes a permanent transformation or just another technique that worked for a while and then stopped? Let us begin with step 6, integrate. Integration is the most overlooked step in nervous system work. It looks like doing nothing. And in a culture obsessed with action, doing nothing feels like wasting time. But integration is where the magic happens. When you complete steps 1 through 5, your nervous system has just experienced something significant. New neural pathways have been activated. Old patterns have been interrupted. Your brain is in a state of heightened plasticity, ready to encode new ways of being. If you immediately jump back into activity, checking your phone, starting your to-do list, engaging with stress, you lose this window. The new patterns do not consolidate. The reset does not stick. But if you pause, even briefly, something remarkable happens. Your brain locks into changes. The new state becomes encoded as a new baseline. The reset becomes part of who you are, not just something you did. A 2019 study from New York University's neuroscience department found that brief periods of wakeful rest after learning increased memory consolidation by up to 40%. The brain uses these rest periods to replay and strengthen new neural connections. This same principle applies to nervous system training. The rest after practice is when your brain consolidates the calm state you just created. Here is the integration practice. After completing steps 1 through 5, do not immediately move. Do not check anything. Do not engage with anything external. Simply sit or lie still for 60 to 90 seconds. Keep your eyes soft or gently closed. Let your breath be natural. You do not need to control it anymore. Notice the sensations in your body without trying to change them. Feel the calm you have created. That is all. 60 to 90 seconds of stillness. During this time, your brain is working. It is consolidating. It is encoding. It is making the reset permanent. Think of integration like letting glue dry. You can have the best glue in the world, but if you move the pieces before it sets, nothing will hold. Integration gives your nervous system time to set. Here is what the average person does wrong. They complete their practice and immediately grab their phone. They check email. They start thinking about their day. They re-engage with stress before the reset has solidified. 2 hours later, they feel just as stressed as before. They conclude that the practice does not work. But the practice worked perfectly, they just did not give it time to stick. Someone who understands integration protects those 60 to 90 seconds fiercely. They know that these moments are not empty time. They are the most productive moments of the entire practice. They are when transformation becomes permanent. There is another form of integration that happens throughout your day. I call it microintegration. Whenever you complete any calming practice, even a single deep breath, pause for 5 to 10 seconds afterward. Do not immediately move on. Let the effect register. Let your nervous system notice that something has shifted. These micropauses accumulate. Each one teaches your brain that calm is a state worth remembering. Each one reinforces the neural pathways of regulation. 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there. Over a day, over a week, over a month, these microintegrations add up to massive change. Now let us move to step 7, protect. Protection is about creating a life that supports your regulated nervous system rather than constantly attacking it. This is not about avoiding all stress. Stress is part of life. Some stress is even healthy. It challenges you to grow, to adapt, to become more capable. Protection is about reducing unnecessary stress. The stress that serves no purpose. The stress that accumulates without benefit. The stress that slowly degrades your nervous system day after day without you even noticing. Let me show you the 3 domains of protection: environment, boundaries, and lifestyle. First, environmental protection. Your nervous system is constantly reading your environment for signals of safety or danger. Colors, sounds, lighting, clutter, temperature, all of these affect your baseline state more than you realize. A 2021 study from the University of Texas at Austin found that people working in cluttered environments showed cortisol levels 25% higher than those in organized spaces. The clutter was not threatening in any real way, but the nervous system read it as chaos, as unpredictability, as something slightly wrong. Look at the spaces where you spend the most time. Your bedroom, your workspace, your car. What signals are these environments sending to your nervous system? Here are simple environmental protections that make a significant difference. Reduce visual clutter in your primary spaces. You do not need to become a minimalist. Just create one or two areas that feel calm and ordered: a desk surface, a bedside table, a corner of a room. Adjust lighting. Harsh overhead lighting activates the stress response. Softer, warmer lighting signals safety. Use lamps instead of overhead lights in the evening. Dim screens after sunset. Control sound. Constant background noise, television, traffic, notifications keeps your nervous system on low alert. Create periods of intentional quiet. Use noise-canceling headphones if needed. Turn off notifications that are not essential. Add elements of nature: plants, natural materials, images of landscapes. Research shows these reduce stress hormones and increase feelings of safety. Your brain evolved in nature. It still responds to natural elements with calm. Second, boundary protection. Your nervous system is affected by the people around you. Their stress becomes your stress. Their dysregulation triggers your dysregulation. This is called co-regulation, and it works in both directions. Protecting your nervous system means being intentional about who you spend time with and how. This does not mean abandoning people who are struggling. It means recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup. It means ensuring that you have regulated people in your life, not just people who need your regulation. It also means setting boundaries around communication. Constant availability is constant activation. Every notification, every message, every request for your attention triggers a small stress response. Here are practical boundary protections. Designate phone-free times: the first hour after waking, the last hour before bed. Mealtimes. These protected periods allow your nervous system to rest from the constant stimulation of digital connection. Practice the art of the delayed response. Not every message requires an immediate reply. Training yourself and others to expect responses within hours rather than minutes reduces the pressure that keeps your system activated. Learn to say no without extensive explanation. "That doesn't work for me" is a complete sentence. Every commitment you make is a withdrawal from your nervous system's energy account. Be intentional about what you agree to. Limit exposure to people who consistently dysregulate you. You may not be able to eliminate these relationships entirely, but you can reduce their duration and frequency. You can meet in environments that feel safer. You can have an exit strategy. Third, lifestyle protection. Your daily habits either support your nervous system or undermine it. Sleep, nutrition, movement, substances, these fundamentals affect your stress resilience more than any technique ever could. Here is what the research clearly shows. Sleep is non-negotiable. A 2020 study from the University of California, Berkeley found that just one night of poor sleep increased amygdala reactivity by 60%. One night. After chronic sleep deprivation, the stress response becomes almost impossible to regulate. Protect your sleep like your mental health depends on it, because it does. Caffeine is a stress accelerator. It directly activates the sympathetic nervous system and increases cortisol production. This does not mean you must eliminate coffee, but it means being honest about how caffeine affects your particular nervous system. If you struggle with anxiety, consider reducing or eliminating caffeine for 2 weeks and noticing what changes. Alcohol disrupts nervous system regulation. While it may feel calming initially, it interferes with sleep quality and increases anxiety in the days following consumption. Many people who struggle with chronic anxiety find significant relief simply by reducing alcohol intake. Movement matters, but intensity matters more. Gentle movement, walking, swimming, yoga, supports the parasympathetic nervous system. High-intensity exercise activates the sympathetic system. Both have their place, but if you are already chronically stressed, adding intense workouts may be counterproductive. Match your movement to your nervous system's current capacity. Now let me show you the difference between how the average person lives and how someone with a protected nervous system operates. The average person wakes to an alarm that shocks their system. They immediately check their phone, flooding their brain with information and stress before they have even left bed. They consume caffeine to override their body's fatigue signals. They work in cluttered, overstimulating environments. They remain constantly available, responding to every notification. They say yes to commitments that drain them. They consume alcohol to unwind, disrupting their sleep, starting the cycle again. They are not doing anything wrong by society's standards. They are doing what everyone does. And they feel exactly how everyone feels: chronically stressed, perpetually tired, always slightly on edge. Someone who protects their nervous system lives differently. They wake gently, with light or soft sounds. They spend their first 30 minutes without screens. They create calm spaces in their environment. They batch their communications instead of responding constantly. They say no to protect their energy. They prioritize sleep. They match their caffeine and alcohol intake to their nervous system's actual needs. They are not living in a monastery. They are living in the same world with the same demands. But they have structured their life to support regulation rather than undermine it. This is not about perfection. You will not implement all of these protections immediately, and you do not need to. Start with one change, then another. Over time, you build a lifestyle that sustains the reset instead of destroying it. Here is a final protection practice that takes 30 seconds and can save your entire day: the transition reset. Whenever you move from one context to another, from home to work, from one meeting to the next, from work to home, take 30 seconds to reset. Stop at the threshold. Take 3 slow breaths with extended exhales. Feel your feet on the ground. Set an intention for how you want to show up in this next context. Then enter. These transition moments are when stress accumulates most rapidly. You carry the tension from the previous context into the next, layering stress upon stress throughout your day. The transition reset interrupts this accumulation. It allows you to enter each new context fresh, regulated, and intentional. Steps 6 and 7 are not glamorous. They do not provide the instant relief of a breathing technique or the catharsis of somatic release. But they are what determine whether your practice creates temporary states or permanent traits. Anyone can feel calm for 10 minutes during a practice. The question is whether you can maintain that calm throughout a challenging day. The question is whether the person you are during practice becomes the person you are during life. Integration and protection answer that question. In the next chapter, you will learn what to do when triggers strike despite your best protection. You will receive emergency protocols for moments of intense activation. You will discover how to apply everything you have learned in real-time, real-world situations. Because life will test you. Triggers will arise. And you need to be ready. The foundation is built. Now we prepare for battle. Chapter 9. When triggers strike. You are in a meeting. Your boss says something critical about your work. In less than 300 milliseconds, your amygdala has already decided this is a threat. Your heart rate spikes. Your face flushes. Your throat tightens. The stress hormones are already flooding your bloodstream. This is the moment everything you have learned will be tested. Because knowing what to do when you are calm and actually doing it when you are activated are two completely different things. The gap between theory and practice is never wider than in the moment a trigger strikes. This chapter will close that gap. You will learn exactly what to do when life does not give you 10 minutes. When you have 30 seconds. When you have 10 seconds. When you are in the middle of a conversation, a conflict, a crisis, and your nervous system is screaming for survival. These are the emergency protocols that will save you when everything else fails. Let me start with a truth that will change how you approach difficult moments. You cannot stop the initial activation. When a trigger strikes, your amygdala fires before your conscious mind even knows what happened. The stress response begins automatically, involuntarily, faster than thought. This is not failure. This is biology. What you can control is what happens next. You can control how long the activation lasts. You can control whether it escalates or resolves. You can control whether you react from survival mode or respond from clarity. The difference between reacting and responding is everything. Reacting is automatic. It is your nervous system taking over, saying and doing whatever the survival brain dictates. Reacting is the email you send in anger and regret an hour later. It is the words you cannot take back. It is the shutdown that leaves you paralyzed when you needed to speak. Responding is different. Responding happens after you have created even the smallest gap between trigger and action. Responding is choosing what to do rather than being driven by what your nervous system demands. The emergency protocols you are about to learn create that gap in real time, under pressure when it matters most. Here is your first emergency protocol, the 10-second reset. This is for moments when you have almost no time. You are in a conversation that is escalating. You are about to say something you will regret. You need to shift your state immediately. Here is what you do. First, press your feet firmly into the ground. Feel the pressure. Feel the solidity of the floor beneath you. This takes 1 second and immediately begins grounding your nervous system. Second, take 1 deep breath with a slow, extended exhale. Breathe in for 3 counts, out for 6. Let the exhale be audible if possible, a quiet sigh that releases tension. This takes about 8 seconds. Third, soften your jaw. Unclench your teeth. Let your tongue rest on the floor of your mouth. This takes 1 second and releases one of the primary tension holders in your body. 10 seconds total. In a conversation, this can happen in the pause between someone finishing their sentence and you responding. It can happen while pretending to consider what was said. It can happen invisibly, without anyone knowing. A 2018 study from the University of Exeter found that even a single conscious breath with an extended exhale reduced physiological stress markers by an average of 11%. In a moment of activation, 11% is the difference between losing control and maintaining composure. The 10-second reset will not fully calm you, but it will prevent escalation. It will give your prefrontal cortex just enough power to make a better choice. It will turn a reaction into a response. Here is your second emergency protocol, the 30-second reset. This is for moments when you can briefly step away. You excuse yourself to use the restroom. You step outside for air. You pause before entering a difficult conversation. Here is the sequence. First, change your physical position. If you were sitting, stand. If you were standing, sit or lean against something. If possible, move to a different location, even just a few steps. Physical movement interrupts the freeze response and shifts your nervous system state. Second, perform 3 extended exhale breaths. Inhale for 4 counts. Exhale for 6 counts. Repeat 3 times. Feel your heart rate begin to slow. Third, use the cold water reset. If you have access to water, splash cold water on your face and the back of your neck. If not, run cold water over your wrists. The cold activates the dive reflex and immediately shifts your nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance. Fourth, ground through your senses. Quickly name 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, 1 thing you can feel. This anchors you in the present moment. 30 seconds, and you return to the situation with a fundamentally different nervous system state than when you left. Here is your third emergency protocol, the 90-second complete reset. This is for moments when you have slightly more time. Before a difficult phone call, after receiving upsetting news, when you feel yourself spiraling and can take a brief pause. This protocol compresses the 7-step method into 90 seconds. Recognize. Notice where you feel the activation in your body. Name it silently. Tight chest. Racing heart. Clenched stomach. 10 seconds. Breathe. 5 extended exhale breaths. In for 4, out for 6. 30 seconds. Ground. 5 things you see, 3 things you feel, 1 thing you hear. 15 seconds. Activate. Hum quietly for 3 exhales, feeling the vibration in your throat. Or if you cannot hum, press your hand to your heart and breathe. 15 seconds. Release. Shake your hands vigorously. Roll your shoulders. Let your jaw drop open. 10 seconds. Integrate. Close your eyes. Take 1 final natural breath. Feel the shift. 10 seconds. 90 seconds. And you have moved through a complete reset that touches every component of the full method. Now let me show you how to apply these protocols to specific trigger types. When the trigger is a difficult person. Before interacting with someone who consistently dysregulates you, perform the 90-second reset. Set an intention for how you want to show up. Remind yourself that their behavior is about their nervous system, not your worth. During the interaction, Use the 10-second reset whenever you feel activation rising. Ground through your feet. Breathe slowly. Soften your jaw. After the interaction, take at least 2 minutes for a full reset before moving on. Do not carry their dysregulation into the rest of your day. When the trigger is bad news. The moment you receive upsetting information, your nervous system floods with stress hormones. This is the worst possible time to make decisions or take action. Use the 30-second reset immediately. Then, if possible, delay any response or decision by at least 15 minutes. During this time, use the full 7-step method. Make decisions only after your prefrontal cortex is back online. Research from Cornell University's Department of Psychology shows that decisions made within the first 10 minutes of receiving stressful news are 43% more likely to be regretted later. Delay is not avoidance. It is wisdom. When the trigger is your own thoughts. Sometimes the trigger is not external. Sometimes it is the spiral of your own mind, catastrophizing, ruminating, replaying past failures, or imagining future disasters. For thought spirals, the grounding step is most important. Your mind is trapped in abstraction, past and future, stories and fears. You need to bring it back to concrete, present moment reality. Use the 5-4-3-2-1 technique aggressively. Focus intensely on physical sensation. Touch something with a strong texture. Hold ice in your hand. Stamp your feet on the ground. Engage your senses so fully that there is no bandwidth left for the spiral. You can also use the technique called worry postponement. When you notice yourself spiraling, say silently, "I will give this thought my full attention at 6 o'clock. Until then, I am choosing to focus on the present." This sounds too simple to work, but studies from the University of Pennsylvania show that worry postponement reduces rumination by up to 53%. Your mind accepts the delay because you are not denying the worry, you are scheduling it. When the trigger is physical overwhelm, sometimes your body is the source: hunger, exhaustion, illness, physical pain. These states lower your window of tolerance and make you reactive to things that normally would not bother you. The first response is to address the physical need if possible. Eat something, rest, take care of the body. But when you cannot immediately address the need, use this phrase as a protective filter. "I am activated right now because my body is struggling. I will not make any important decisions or have any difficult conversations until I have addressed this physical state." This simple acknowledgement prevents you from attributing your activation to external causes and creating conflicts that are really about your own depletion. Now let me show you the difference between how the average person handles triggers versus someone with a trained nervous system. The average person is ambushed by triggers. They react before they realize they have been activated. They say things they regret. They send messages they wish they could unsend. They carry the activation for hours, letting one moment ruin an entire day. And afterward, they blame themselves for lacking control. Someone with a trained nervous system experiences the same initial activation, the same amygdala firing, the same stress hormones, the same physical sensations. But within seconds, they recognize what is happening. They deploy an emergency protocol. They create a gap. And from that gap, they choose a response instead of being hijacked by a reaction. They still feel the trigger. They are not numb or detached. But they have a space between stimulus and response that allows them to act from their values rather than their survival instincts. This capacity is not innate. It is trained. Every time you use an emergency protocol, you strengthen the neural pathways that allow faster recognition and faster intervention. Every time you successfully create a gap, you make the next gap easier to create. Over time, your window of tolerance expands. Triggers that once sent you into complete overwhelm become manageable. Situations that once required the 90-second reset now only need 10 seconds. Your baseline becomes so stable that most of what used to trigger you barely registers. This is what nervous system resilience looks like. Not the absence of stress, but the capacity to move through stress and return to baseline quickly. There is one more thing I need you to understand about triggers. Something that will save you from years of self-criticism. You will not handle every trigger perfectly. You will still react sometimes. You will still say things you regret. You will still have moments where the activation is stronger than your capacity to regulate. This is not failure. This is being human. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is fewer reactions and more responses. The goal is quicker recovery when you do get triggered. The goal is moving in the right direction, not arriving at an impossible destination. Every time you catch yourself mid-reaction and pause, even briefly, you have succeeded. Every time you recognize activation 5 minutes after it started instead of 5 hours, you have improved. Every time you recover faster than you did last month, you are healing. Be patient with yourself. Your nervous system took years to develop its current patterns. It will not rewire overnight. But every practice, every protocol, every moment of awareness is laying down new pathways. In the final chapter, you will learn how to claim your new identity. You will understand what it means to be someone with a regulated nervous system, not as a temporary state, but as a permanent trait. You will see the life that becomes possible when you are no longer run by your survival responses. You have the tools. You have the protocols. You have the knowledge. Now it is time to become the person who no longer needs to be saved from their own nervous system. Your transformation is almost complete. Chapter 10. Your new nervous system identity. You are not who you thought you were. For years, perhaps decades, you have carried a story about yourself. A story that said you were anxious. That said you were easily overwhelmed. That said stress was simply part of who you are, woven into your personality, encoded in your DNA, permanent and unchangeable. That story was wrong. You were never an anxious person. You were a person with an anxious nervous system. And that distinction, the one I introduced in the very first chapter, is now more than words. It is your lived experience. It is the foundation of a new identity. Because identity is not about what you feel in any given moment. Identity is about what you believe is possible. And after everything you have learned in this audiobook, what you believe is possible has fundamentally changed. You now know that your brain was designed to keep you safe, not calm. You understand why your alarm system fires at threats that are not real. You have met your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, your vagus nerve, and your stored trauma. You have learned why nothing worked before and why this approach is different. You have the 7 steps. Recognize, breathe, ground, activate, release, integrate, protect. You have emergency protocols for when triggers strike. You have the knowledge to build a life that supports your regulation instead of destroying it. But knowledge is not transformation. Practice is transformation. And the question that matters now is not what you know, but who you will become. Let me tell you about the person you are becoming. You are becoming someone who notices stress before it takes over. While others are ambushed by their emotions, you catch the early signals, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, the subtle shift in breathing, and you intervene before the cascade begins. You are becoming someone who responds instead of reacts. The automatic patterns that once controlled you now have a gap in them, a space where choice lives, a moment where you decide how to show up, rather than being hijacked by survival instincts. You are becoming someone who recovers quickly. Stress still touches you. It touches everyone, but it no longer owns you. You move through activation and back to baseline with an ease that once seemed impossible. What used to ruin your entire day now takes minutes to process. You are becoming someone who feels safe in your own body. The constant hypervigilance is quieting. The background hum of anxiety is fading. For the first time, perhaps in your entire life, you are beginning to experience what internal safety actually feels like. This is not a fantasy. This is what happens when you practice consistently. This is what the research shows. This is what thousands of people have experienced when they commit to this work. A 2023 longitudinal study from the University of Wisconsin tracked participants who practiced nervous system regulation techniques for 12 weeks. At the end of the study, 71% reported a fundamental shift in how they experience stress. Not just reduction in symptoms, a change in identity. They no longer saw themselves as anxious people managing anxiety. They saw themselves as regulated people who occasionally experience stress. This shift in identity is the final transformation. And it happens not through a single moment of insight. but through the accumulation of small practices, day after day, until the new way of being becomes who you are. Let me give you the maintenance protocol that will sustain this transformation for the rest of your life. Daily practice, 10 minutes. This is non-negotiable. Every morning, before the demands of the day begin, you move through the 7 steps. You recognize your current state. You breathe with extended exhales. You ground in the present moment. You activate your vagus nerve. You release stored tension. You integrate in stillness. You set your protection intentions for the day. 10 minutes. Every day, not because you are in crisis, but because you are building capacity. Not because you feel bad, but because you are investing in feeling good. This daily practice is the compound interest of nervous system health. Small deposits, made consistently, creating wealth you cannot imagine. Weekly reset, 30 minutes. Once a week, you take a longer session. You move through the 7 steps more slowly, more deeply. You spend extra time on release, allowing your body to discharge whatever accumulated during the week. You spend extra time on integration, letting the calm state really settle into your bones. Think of the weekly reset as a deeper cleaning. The daily practice maintains your baseline. The weekly practice clears what the daily practice missed. Monthly review, 15 minutes. Once a month, you step back and assess. What is working? What needs adjustment? Has your capacity increased? Are there new triggers that need attention? Are there protections that have slipped? This monthly review keeps your practice alive and evolving. It prevents the staleness that leads to abandonment. It ensures that your nervous system work grows with you as you grow. Emergency protocols. Use your 10-second, 30-second, and 90-second resets whenever you need them. Don't wait for crisis. Early intervention is always easier than recovery. This simple structure is what will sustain your transformation. Not complicated, not time-consuming, just consistent. Now let me show you what becomes possible when you live from a regulated nervous system. You wake in the morning without dread. The day ahead feels less like something to survive and more like something you are actually part of. Your body begins to feel like a safe place again. Challenges still appear, but you move through them with a steadiness that surprises you. The email that once sent you spiraling barely registers. The conversation that used to trigger shutdown now feels manageable. You have capacity you never had before. Your relationships deepen. Regulation creates presence. You listen more fully. You react less quickly. You respond with patience that was impossible when your nervous system lived in constant activation. People around you feel the difference, even if they don't have the words for it. Your work improves. Creativity requires safety. Focus requires calm. Decision-making requires access to the prefrontal cortex. When your nervous system is regulated, all of this becomes available again. Your health stabilizes. Stress touches every major system in the body. And when you regulate your nervous system, you reduce inflammation, improve immune function, sleep better, and support long-term well-being. This isn't just mental health work, it's whole body health work. And perhaps most beautifully, joy becomes easier to feel. Anxiety dulls pleasure and narrows your awareness. A regulated nervous system allows you to finally receive what life has been offering all along. The sunset you rushed past, the laugh you held in, the love you were too guarded to receive. This is the life you are building toward. This is what your practice is making possible. Before we close, I want to leave you with a truth that will carry you through the harder days. Healing is not linear. There will be moments when old patterns return, when you react instead of respond, when you lose the gap you worked so hard to create. These moments are not failure. They are part of the process. Your nervous system learned its patterns over years, sometimes decades. It will not unlearn them in weeks. But every reset, every moment of awareness, every choice to pause is shaping new neural pathways. Progress is happening, even when you cannot feel it. Trust the process. Trust your body. Trust the small, consistent actions you take. You are not broken. You never were. You are a human being with a nervous system that tried to protect you in the only way it knew how. And now you are teaching it something new. A way of safety. A way of calm. A way of being fully, vividly alive. This is your turning point. Not because I said so, but because you chose to stay, to listen, and to continue. The nervous system reset is not a task. It is a way of living, an identity grounded in internal safety. You have a switch inside you, and now you know how to turn it on. Share this with someone who still believes they are broken. Let them know that healing is possible. And tomorrow morning, begin again. 10 minutes, 7 steps, one breath at a time. Your reset starts now, and it never has to end.